ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبين الظالمين مدرك الهاربين، والصلاة والسلام وتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي المكي المدني الهاشمي الذي في السماوات بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الأطهرين، سيما أولهم أمير المؤمنين وآخرهم بقية الله في الأراضين، روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء، ورحمة الله على محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم أجمعين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم وقتلتهم وغاصب حقوقهم ومنكر فضائلهم العمين. أما بعد, for the happiness of Hazrat Zahra Maziyah, for the enlightenment of the graves of Yawm al-Humeen, of the graves of the Shahada, Ulama and Siddiqeen, for the safety of the followers of Ahlul Bayt around the world, and for the safety and the hastening of the reappearance of Hazrat Baqiyatullah ila Azam Arwahun al-Fida, please recite your loudest salawat. That was such a feeble salawat. Alhamdulillah. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one who is Rahman and one who is Rahim. We've, over the last almost 8-9 nights, have discussed the concept of happiness, a concept that is, or an idea that is as elusive as they come. That what is happiness? And we've discussed the ills of happiness being related to material matters. And we concluded that actually happiness is something that is intrinsic, that is internal within an individual. And it's easily achievable if a person puts their mind to it, if a person focuses. And for that we chose the teachings of Amir al-Mu'mineen from Nahjul Balagha, specifically the Kalimat al-Kithar, the end part of Nahjul Balagha, where Sayyid Radi brings short sayings, because Nahjul Balagha is made up of 3 parts: the sermons of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the letters of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and then the short sayings of Amir al-Mu'mineen, many of which Sayyid Razi actually brings in from larger khutbahs. Obviously Nahjul Balagha is not a comprehensive compilation of the khutbahs of Amir al-Mu'mineen and his letters, but rather it's a selection of what Sayyid Radi liked, that he's compiled it all together. We've looked at a number of various sayings from Nahjul Balagha, trying to extract an understanding of happiness from them, and today I want to look at hikmah number 197 of Nahjul Balagha, where Amir al-Mu'mineen says, إِنَّ هَذِهِ الْقُلُوبِ تَمَلُّ كَمَا تَمَلُّ الْأَبْدَانِ فَابْتَغُوا لَهَا طَرَائِفَ الْحِكْمَةِ. He says that these hearts, they become tired like the bodies become tired. You should therefore search for hikmah, wisdom, beautiful sayings for them to be enjoyed as refreshment, to refresh the hearts. When we talk about the heart, we refer specifically, to the soul of an individual. We refer to this, the ruh of a person. It's not necessary that it be the physical heart that we know. See, the physical has no real benefit or other than the physical realm, but in the spiritual realms, it doesn't have any. That heart that is referred to is the soul. Please recite another salawat. So when we refer to the heart, we refer to that soul, that divine aspect of the human being, that which is related to nafakhtu fihi min ruhi, where Allah says, I blew part of my soul into him, is related to the divine. But that soul, that heart, that ruh, it becomes tired, like the body becomes tired. Like the body requires rejuvenation, like the body needs rest, like the body needs to, bring itself, refresh itself, the heart, the ruh, also requires refreshing. People become bogged down, they become depressed, they become upset, because the ruh is stagnated, it's not been given anything to refresh it. And there's a number of different things that can bring about that tiredness. A number of different things that can cause a person to become upset, or that imbalance to be created. Repetition brings depression. Constantly doing the same thing over and over. And I've mentioned this point before. That day-to-day life that we lead. Get up in the morning, go to work, do the same thing at work, come home, have the same routine, go to sleep, get up and repeat over and over. And that repetition, constant repetition, creates the depression within a person. It causes the soul to stagnate. Poverty can cause that depression within a person. A person becomes upset at their financial situation, and they're constantly thinking over it. It causes that sadness, that depression within the soul. Illness, that can depress us. Someone's fallen ill, a loved one's fallen ill, or we're battling an illness. It can bring a person down. It can really drain a person mentally, psychologically. And so the person eventually, enters sort of a state where now the soul, the mind, everything is in a state of depression. When the honor or the izzah of a person is ruined, where a person has been humiliated by others, their izzah is ruined, they've been exposed, or in some way, shape or form, they're humiliated. And because of that humiliation, they have a sense of depression. For girls, it's a taboo, having been divorced. That taboo that is seen within the community, people label them that this is someone that's been through a divorce, this is someone that is in some way tainted. And that itself, can bring about depression, not so much in our societies, but in sort of Eastern societies where it's still seen as something hugely taboo. Or, the pursuit of marriage, someone's got too old and now they're finding it difficult to get married, and that depression that is associated to that, constantly thinking over this point that maybe my chance is gone and I'm upset. Or someone that's got married and can't have children, has no children, has tried, doesn't have children. Again, that upset, that constant, depression around those points, or losing a child. I have a child, but Allah tests me by taking away that child. Losing a job, all the idea or the whole concept of being alone, the feeling of loneliness, even though I'm surrounded by people, but I feel alone. And that sense of loneliness is what can also create that depression, that sadness within an individual. Or becoming upset about issues that are happening around the world. Look at the state of the people of Yemen, look at what's happening in Syria, and a person becomes upset. So what we need to do is try and find a source of happiness to remove these depressions that come about in our lives. We need to find something that can essentially, illuminate the darkness of that sadness, that huzn, that depression that has taken root within the heart of a person. And many times we bring it upon ourselves. Constantly doing haram, constantly sinning, does not help a person combat that feeling of sadness that they have. You know, at the same time, they may be in a situation, for example, with an illness, and they're having to deal with it, or they're feeling alone, but at the same time, they're committing haram, they're committing sins. That will further cement that feeling within an individual. So in order to overcome it, one needs to be able to, reform the heart, to change the heart, find sources of happiness for the heart. And inshallah we'll look at that today. In the Holy Quran we find that there are two references to heart, two types of heart. Qalb salim, the heart that is content, and qalb marid, the heart that is ill. Yeah? Both qalb salim and qalb marid are spoken about in the Holy Quran, and it is, obviously the word qalb, not kalb. It's very important that we pronounce the Arabic correctly. The word qalb means heart, kalb means dog. And some people don't focus on it, especially for example in certain ziyarat. وَقَلْبِي لِقَلْبِكُمْ سِلْمٍ. My heart has become as submitted essentially to your heart. But we don't concentrate and we say, وَقَلْبِي لِقَلْبِكُمْ سِلْمٍ. We're saying to the Imam, my dog has submitted to your dog. Yeah? And it's a problem if we can't pronounce Arabic properly. Even in the salah, for example. A person who cannot pronounce the letter sad, this is a problem. Because in the salawat that you recite, is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad with a sad. This means, oh Allah, send your blessings upon Muhammad and ali Muhammad. But if you say Allahumma salli with a sin, i.e. you're not pronouncing the sad, it means instead of saying Allah send your blessings upon Muhammad and ali Muhammad, it now means, oh Allah, kill Muhammad and ali Muhammad. The sin and the sad makes a big difference. If we don't know how to pronounce it, we're essentially doing a great disservice, because we haven't even tried. Or then go to Surah Al-Tawheed, Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah Qul Huwallah. We say Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Allahu Samad with a sad. People don't pronounce the sad, they say Samad with the sin. Samad is one of the characteristics of Allah, one of the sifat of Allah. Samad with the sin means manure, feces. So now people say Allahu and they don't pronounce the sad, they say sin. It's a problem. You cannot pray behind someone who has incorrect pronunciation. If they've tried their hardest and they still can't pronounce properly, for them their namaz is jaiz, but they cannot lead the prayer, and nor can you then pray behind that person. These are the various examples. Another example, Allahumma ajjil lawaliyyika al-faraj. Allah hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time, yeah? But people don't pronounce the ayn. They say Allahumma ajjil with the alif. Now Allahumma ajjil means Allah hasten. Allahumma ajjil with the alif means Allah slow down. I often say that, maybe it's because of us Indian Pakistanis that the Imam hasn't come, because there's more of us and we're saying Allahumma ajjil, Allah slow him down. Whereas the dua should be Allahumma ajjil with ayn. So all of these, they have a massive effect when we're reciting the du'as of the holy month. Being able to pronounce the du'as correctly is essential. Even certain things we say, or certain things we pronounce, we change the meanings totally. And if I'm unable to pronounce it properly, and obviously this is one other thing that, when we're listening to du'as and things, the mustahab actions, we need to be reciting them ourselves. Like for example, we have this dua, Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur. This dua, many people don't say anything, they just go, Ameen. It's a mustahab dua. You need to recite the words yourself as well. Yeah? And so while the person is saying, Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur, you also need to be saying, Allahumma adkhil ala ahli al-qubur as-surur. And then you can say, Ameen if you want. But the dua is mustahab. It's better that we recite it as well. We recite it together, we recite it correctly. So these are things that we need to keep in mind. So there's two types of qalb in the Holy Quran. Qalb salim and qalb marid. The tranquil or the content heart, or then the heart which is ailed. And twice in the Holy Quran there's been reference to this qalb salim. The first is an ayah that I recited for you a couple of days ago. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَطَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. That neither wealth nor children will come to their aid on that day. The only thing that will help them is qalb salim, that heart that has been purified within the world. In another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He refers to Hazrat Ibrahim, وَإِنَّ مِنْ شِيعَتِهِ لَا إِبْرَاهِيمٍ إِذْ جَاءَ رَبُّهُ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. That surely Ibrahim was one of the Shi'as of Hazrat Nuh and was bestowed with qalb salim. When it talks about qalb marid, we have various ayat, things like في قلوبهم مرضا فزادهم الله مرضا, that in their hearts is a disease and Allah will increase the disease in their hearts. And this in itself is, a discussion that what does it mean that Allah will increase the disease in their hearts. It's not physically Allah intervening to misguide someone, rather it is Allah moving away the opportunities for guidance, the opportunities from that. This is known as like the makr of Allah. So in Dua Abu Hamza Thumali, when we recite Ilahi la tu'addibni bi'uqubatik وَلَا تَمْكُرْ بِي فِي هِيلَتِكَ. Oh Allah, do not punish me or do not train me through your punishment, and do not subject me to your plot. The plot of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very silent, it's very deceptive in the way that it comes. مَكَرُ وَمَكَرُ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. That they plan and Allah plans. Surely Allah is the best of planners. That certain things happen that a person doesn't even realize, that they're constantly sinning, and ignoring the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and slowly but surely Allah is opening the paths for their sins, allowing them to walk down a certain path until it's too late for them to come back, because they've chosen that path of sin, they've chosen that path of turning away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this idea of the the plot of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's two types of qalb. And Al-Yawmi Tawatawa'i, when he says the Quran refers to qalb, is in reference to the ruh, the soul of an individual. So it's either ailed or it's a soul that is purified, that is clean. And they both have signs. The signs of the happy soul is, when we look at the Quran, they said that the happy soul, it has sakina, has calmness. It has that calm about it. Certain individuals that you see that have purified themselves, even amongst so much. One of the journalists that came to interview Imam al-Khomeini Quddasa Sirruh in the early days of the revolution, he said, one of his point, or one of the things that he said about Imam Rahil was that it was as if there was a storm around him and he was the calm in the hurricane. That there was so much going on around Imam al-Khomeini, but yet Imam Khomeini himself was calm. And he said it seemed like he was almost like an oasis of calm in all of this storm. So much was going on, but yet when he walked in, there was just this element of calm. This is qalb salim. This is a person who's achieved that sakina. They are calm within themselves, and that calmness then projects on other people. They've managed to attain a level of calmness within themselves, that now that calmness then goes to there are certain people that you sit with and you just feel their vibe, and it feels so good because they themselves have achieved that level of calmness within themselves. Khushu', the level of understanding, of being sort of conscious of what a person does, has that khushu' in their prayers. That person is now cognizant of what is happening around them. Khushu' is that thing that allows you, when you go or you hear about the fada'il of Ahlul Bayt, you hear about the masa'ib of Ahlul Bayt, it makes you cry. Or when you go on ziyarat and you read the izn dukhul of the ziyarat and you're saying those lines, asking for permission to enter, and tears begin to fall from your eyes. That's that for sure that is being spoken about. Or when someone gives you advices, spiritual advices or advices to help yourself, and it hits the heart directly, that allows a person, that for sure is a sign that the heart is clean. The other is that the heart that becomes, that changes. The heart that wants to develop, it's not stagnated. It develops, it becomes better, it changes. Every day, every month, every week, there is some sort of change within it. Munib, the heart is qalbi munib. It's a person that is doing tawbah. That heart, the person that is inclined towards doing tawbah, that doing istighfar, thinking about their sins, thinking about their life, repenting from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, repenting from their sins, repenting towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's munib, the person that does tawbah. And then the last thing that is mentioned in the Holy Quran is itminan. Ya ayyatuha an-nafsul mutma'inna, arji'i ila rabbika radiyatan mardiya. The level of itminan that this person knows. Again, with Imam Khomeini Qudus as-Sirruh, they said to him, in the plane when he was flying from Paris back to France, they said to him that you've overthrown a government. You've overthrown a government, 2,000-year-old monarchy. How do you feel? And he replied one word, nothing. No difference. And then the reporter says that we knew that there was a chance that the plane could be shot down, missiles, everyone's worried. He says that we looked towards Khomeini, he ordered himself a blanket, he laid down, he covered it and went to sleep. Everyone else in the plane was afraid that we might get shot. That's the first time he's going back now. The Shah's been overthrown, but there are people that are resisting. And he's gone to sleep. Itminan. When a person has that itminan within themselves, that certainty within themselves, they don't worry about these small matters. For them, these things don't matter. Their trust is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But when that heart becomes ailed, when it becomes diseased, then a person doesn't want to pray. A person, can't concentrate in their prayer. They can't concentrate in dua. They can't shed tears when they're doing dua. They can't shed tears when they go on ziyarah. They can't shed tears when they hear the musibah of Abu Abdullah. Someone like Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan is like the individual who then hires Hajjaj, kills Shi'as left, right and center. When he comes for Hajj, they say that Abdul Malik, he sat on the side and he watched the people do tawaf, and they said to him, look, you're here for Hajj, you're Khalifatul Muslimin apparently. Why aren't you doing the tawaf? Why aren't you doing anything? He says, I don't like it. I don't like it. It doesn't feel right to me. I don't like doing that. I don't like praying. I don't like worship. Because the disease is so ingrained in the heart. Now they get repulsed. He says, I hate this worship, all that I have to do. And sometimes we get into that fear, why do I have to get up for Fajr? More than anything, at the time of Fajr, if you really want to see whether the disease is there within the heart, look at the time when you've been inconvenienced. Technically, you have to wake up early to pray Fajr. What is the feeling that is going through the heart? Am I bouncing out of bed happy, or am I, getting out really upset and not wanting to do this? But when I do it, I feel like, I've achieved something huge, like I've done God a favor. And this is that sort of, that riyah, that ujub that we develop, that I somehow think that I've done God a favor in what I've, because I've somehow managed to get myself out of bed. And really, that person is unfortunate. That person is cursed. The one that now no longer feels the love of ibadat, or is repulsed by ibadat. Doesn't want to pray. doesn't, and we all know that, if you don't pray, you're going to hell. It's as simple as that. The shifa of Ahlul Bayt, yes, it is there for the mu'mineen, but the sixth Imam says that the one that considers, not the one that doesn't pray, the Imam says the one that considers his salah to be light. So maybe he misses a Fajr, prays Zuhr and Asr, Maghrib, Isha, okay, it doesn't matter. Next day, maybe he stays awake till Fajr, misses Zuhr, Asr, gets too busy at work, misses Maghrib, Isha. That person, or one day he doesn't pray, one day he prays everything on time. Says that person, not the one that doesn't, the one that doesn't pray is going to hell anyway. But the one that leaves or takes his salah lightly, prays one, misses one, prays one day, doesn't pray another day. The sixth Imam says that our shifa'ah will never reach that person that takes their salah lightly. We will never intercede for them. And the intercession of Ahlul Bayt, when you read, if we get an opportunity at another point, we'll look at the kayfiyat, the particularities or the peculiarities of the Day of Judgment and how the shifa'ah of Ahlul Bayt works on Yawmul Qiyamah. But the Imam, and you see that it is unbelievable how the shifa'ah of Ahlul Bayt works and how it pans out on the Day of Judgment. But the sixth Imam is saying the one that considers his salah to be light, to be something insignificant, he will never receive our shifa'ah. Even having seen all that which Allah will allow Ahlul Bayt to do on Yawm al-Qiyamah, that person will still not be able to give shifa, will not receive shifa of Ahlul Bayt. To the extent where you have narrations like Imam al-Baqir saying that my grandmother will pass over the plains of Mahshar like a bird flying over the earth, picking up grains from the earth. She says she will pass over the Mahshar like that, interceding for all those that were her lovers, all those that claim to follow her, and she will intercede for all of them. Allah will give her free reign, saying, today Fatima, today it's your day. You do what you want, you intercede for who you want, you take as many people as you want to Jannah. That's level of intercession. And the sixth Imam is saying, we will have all of that, but we will not intercede for the one that considered his salah to be light, considered or took his salah lightly. That level, that person with a diseased heart that does not consider it to be important, it's a sign of a disease within the heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows to grow, because the person doesn't do istighfar, doesn't feel bad. You don't feel bad about listening to music anymore because it's just what I do. I don't feel bad about it because the disease has become ingrained. Now, I'm making myself, I'm actively going out and trying to listen to music. I'm trying to look for that haram. And we have so many narrations of individuals in the barzakh that are pinned down by angels, and over them they pour molten metal into their ears that melt away half their faith. And the Holy Prophet says, who are these people? Says, these are the individuals that used to listen to music. On the Day of Judgment, when they come in, because it's وَنَفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ فَتَأْتُونَ أَفْوَاجًا, that on the Day of Judgment, when the trumpet will be blown, people will come in group by group. And the Holy Prophet was asked that, what are these group by group that Allah says? What is this fawj? What is this army by army, group by group? Who is this about? And the Holy Prophet in one narration gives 10 reasons, or 10 groups of people that come in. And one of those groups of people is those individuals that will be holding within their hands instruments of fire. And they will be deaf, dumb and blind on that day. And they will be being dragged on that day by angels. In their hands will be instruments of fire. Said that these are individuals who were the singers and the musicians of the world. They used to sing, and they hold in their hands the instruments that they used to play in the dunya. But now these instruments aren't like what they used to play in the dunya. Now they're made of fire, and now they can't let go of them. So they burn, they're blind, they're deaf, they're dumb. They can't do anything. The disease, when it becomes ingrained, then people start finding justification. They try and find justification for their actions. You'll have people, oh, but I smoke weed because it kind of helps me get close to Allah. Yeah? Helps me reach a spiritual state. I was speaking to someone earlier today and they were saying, they have a friend like this. That, I smoke weed and it helps me understand dua kumail. Or I have some sort of hallucinogens. Understand one thing. That what a person experiences under the influence of drugs, no matter how spiritual they feel, and no matter how many realities are revealed to them, that is solely an experience of the mind. And the proof for it is that that person can never achieve that level until they take the drugs again. They have to continue to take the drugs to be able to achieve that level of euphoria. But when a person begins to experience those spiritual highs through tazkiyatun nafs, that feeling remains constantly. There isn't a high and a low. There isn't me needing to recite dua kumail before I recite it, having a quick spliff, having a quick drag on my cannabis so that I can understand. No, now when a person has achieved tazkiyatun nafs, or is working to purify themselves, now when they recite that dua kumail, they continue to have that feeling of euphoria even after the dua, and they continue to change their life even after it. Don't get dragged into these discourses that people now have. That, no, it helps me and I can see things and I can fly. No, you can't. You're going to get paranoia and you're going to end up, killing someone that you know. Yeah? Not to trivialize the matter, obviously. So don't get dragged into these. The euphoria that a person feels through effort, the effort being of tazkiyatun nafs, of purifying the soul, is different to what people claim to feel in this state. Because that, something to do with drugs, is not spiritual. It's not spiritual experience. The experience itself is solely based on biology. It's not based on the spiritual experience. Spiritual experience is linked to Allah. This is not. So people have this idea, so that disease that is there, people try and find, excuses for their heart. So anyway, we're talking about the heart that is upset, that's depressed. What's the solution? How do we rejuvenate the heart that is tired, that is, because the hadith that we've taken from Kalimat al-Kithar is that Amir al-Mu'mineen says that the heart, the soul becomes tired, becomes depressed and sad in the same way that the body becomes tired, depressed and sad. So rejuvenate it. Amir al-Mu'mineen says rejuvenate it through listening to words of hikmah. That's how you rejuvenate the heart. You rejuvenate the body by going for, a massage, or going to a spa. By the way, just a quick point here as well. For a man to receive a massage from a woman is haram. For a woman to receive a massage from a man is haram. If you cannot find a male masseuse, you cannot go for a massage. Let's just make that clear. Sometimes people think, you know what? It's okay, it's medical reasons. No, it's not a medical reason. So there can't be this overchange. But when you go to get rejuvenated, what do? You go, you try and get a massage, you do various, and we do have various hadith about this, about the physical and the spiritual rejuvenation. Lengthy hadith from the Holy Prophet where he mentions certain points. And some of these points are quite, we probably don't understand them, but he says, in order to rejuvenate oneself, in order to rejuvenate the soul and the spirit, he says, go horse riding. Says, go and view the jungles and the forests. Look at trees and vegetations. Go and breathe in the fresh air from those areas. Eat good food. Make sure that your food is tahir, is clean, and make sure that you're not eating too much. So you have all these various teachings from the Holy Prophet on how to rejuvenate, how to bring about that sense of rejuvenation within the body. So how do we rejuvenate the soul? Amir al-Mu'mineen says, first of all, listen to words of hikmah. Sit with people, learn wisdom, listen, because that feeds the soul directly. Learn from people. Have a good time. By learning from people or sitting with people doesn't mean that we have to like sort of sit there with the Quran open and be like, right, okay, so this hadith says this and this Quranic ayat says this. No. Hikmah, telling jokes is rejuvenation of the soul. Hearing jokes, having a laugh and a joke. But the requirement is what? They say that the mu'min is one that jokes. Yeah? Or if you want to make a journey, this is hadith, if you want to make a journey go faster, then have someone with you that will tell you jokes along the way. Someone that will tell you jokes. But what type of jokes? The first is that the joke must not be at the expense of someone else. Yeah? It shouldn't belittle anyone else, or it shouldn't berate anyone else. The second is that it should not be a joke that goes against the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it can be something that is, you can joke about something and everyone's like, oh, what sort of joke doesn't go against teachings of Allah? Every sort of joke that we know is like going against the teachings of God, or taking the mick out of someone else. Did you guys say taking the mick? You don't say taking the mick. Or belittling someone else. Yeah? That's what we know. I mean, stand-up comedy, what is it? It is that. You somehow find fault in someone else or something else, and you belittle it, and you work on that fault or that error within a person. So it says that jokes are fine. To have laugh and a joke between mu'mineen is good. To have cordial relationships, to be very happy, one of the signs of the believer is wajhun munbasit. Their faces are smiling and happy, though they may have pain in their heart, pain between what Allah believes. They're worried about their relationship with Allah, but they will never let anyone else know that they're upset. Their faces will always be smiling. Their faces will always be welcoming. So having a laugh and a joke between friends is not a problem. It's not an issue. As long as it doesn't go against the teachings of Allah, we're not telling rude jokes, or we're not belittling anyone else, then in between that it is perfectly fine. Islam says you can have a laugh and a joke with each other. It doesn't mean that it has to be all serious all the time. The other thing that one can do in order to rejuvenate the soul is sit with elders, sit with people that have had experience. Before we used to have this culture where people would sit with the elders, they would hear stories about what it was like when they first, like for example, elders, what it was like when they first came to America, or we hear from our elders what it was first like when they came to England, what the difficulties were, and how easy a life we have now because what they've set up for us coming to this country, and then we were born in whatever country we were, and how our parents and so listening to elders, talking about their experiences, hearing about their experiences, hearing about the laughs and the jokes and the things that they had to do in order to explain that they wanted to buy an egg but they didn't speak English. And we have all these stories in England. Obviously, you guys came a lot later. People started coming, but in England, the people started coming from the 40s and the 50s. And so like trying to buy an egg, and the person doesn't know what to say. Egg is in English, and so like imitating a chicken, going around the shop trying to explain to the shopkeeper that he wants eggs. These sort of stories and things like that, they're rejuvenation of the soul. They're rejuvenation of a person's tired soul. It rejuvenates a person. Go out, meet people. Don't get stuck with the same person. Go out, meet with people, interact with people, interact with your friends, meet with them. Obviously, if they're not toxic friends, friends that will take you towards haram, but friends that are good. It's a way of relaxing the self, removing that depression from the soul. People get married and then that's it. They don't ever leave the house. Is whenever, once in a while they'll come out, but it's sometimes good to get out the house and, experience other things and get around. One of the hadith which speaks about murawat, gallantry, gentlemanly conduct, politeness. All of these are synonyms to the gallantry or murawat. So murawat is gallantry or being like gentlemanly conduct, being polite. And the Holy Prophet says that there's 3 types of murawat. One in the home and one on travels. the gallantry or the gentlemanly conduct in the home, the characteristics of it is that the person will recite the Quran, they will have a presence within the masjid, a masjid. It specifically says a masjid. I don't know if you recited the Siga of a masjid, but it's a problem that we have in England as well. Many of our Shia centers are not masajid, they're just community centers. There is an intrinsic, there is a spiritual benefit to having a masjid. There are certain fiqh rulings, certain things that are attached to a masjid that you can't get anywhere else. So being in the masjid and being with good people, and discussing and being careful within the fiqh. And then gallantry in travels, the Holy Prophet says, is sharing the items that you have on your travels with others that may need them. So you've gone on travels and someone's forgotten their nail clippers or something. You lend them your nail clippers. That is gentlemanly conduct, according to the Holy Prophet. The other one is that to joke during your travels with people without going against the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the third one is something that seems to be common here in America as well. The third part of gentlemanly conduct to do when you go on a travel, or you go traveling with someone, is that when you return, because on travels you get to see people's defects, you get to see things that they messed up on, things that they did wrong, says that when you come back, don't do ghibah of the bad that you saw on the person when you went on travel. This is gentlemanly conduct. When you go on traveling with them and you see flaws in their character, you see them do something haram, then don't bring it back and tell everyone about it, or to put it in other words, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Yeah, this is exactly the same idea. But what happens then, just you do not do ghibah of the person. This is that gentlemanly conduct. So how is it that we maintain that ruh, the good, we've rejuvenated it, we've reawoken it. How do we maintain it? How do we maintain the rejuvenated soul? Stop it from becoming tired again. The first advice is to listen to advices. Listen to when someone tries to advise you, when someone tries to guide you or tell you, look, this is something that you're doing wrong. Well, listen to the advice that you're given. That will continue the soul. It will allow it to be rejuvenate. The second is maintaining taqwa, avoiding haram, avoiding sins, and being conscious of Allah. This will allow the soul to be fresh constantly. It will allow the soul to be rejuvenated, away from sadness and depression. Have that taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the third thing is that constantly learn, constantly seek new knowledge, constantly learn and act upon it. Don't stagnate. Often we stagnate in our day-to-day lives and in our spirituality. I've done this thing for 50 years. I recited my namaz in the same way for 50 years. I'm not going to change it. I recited the same surah. I'm not going to change it. And so my mind wanders now. And I run on autopilot. I've stagnated, and stagnant water smells, and a stagnant soul smells as well. Because a stagnant soul will be inclined towards evil as well. It's just like when you have a pool of water, nothing happens in it. It starts to let off a smell. But the soul that's constantly developing, constantly changing, no matter what age we're at, there can be no excuse to do the same thing over and over. We have to try and learn, we have to try and develop ourselves. The soul, spirituality is a very fluid thing. So it constantly adapts. You don't ever, when you come across a problem, when you come across a difficulty, a block in your life, in your spiritual life, don't try and head on and destroy it. Rather, learn to flow around it. Accept that block is there for a reason, and so instead of trying to knock it out the way, flow around it. Accept that it's there. Flow around the difficulty. It's the same concept. Those of you that are
that are familiar with the philosophy behind Wing Chun Kung Fu is that when you encounter force, you don't fight force with force. Rather, you absorb the force, or you yield to the force, take the force in, and then give back your force plus that force. You yield. You never try and fight force with force. So when you have difficulties in your life, applying the same concept of fluidity, is that when you go towards this difficulty in life, be that financial difficulty, be that difficulty with you, don't now try and run head on and try and solve it. Why me? I'm going to try and get this out of the way. No, accept it. When you learn to accept and you begin to flow around it, you say, Ya Allah, I've accepted that this is the situation, and I'm going to flow. I'm going to try and flow and change and adapt towards this situation. I'm going to adapt my lifestyle. If my money or my income has become less, instead of me trying to really work hard to maintain that lifestyle, I've got to learn to be fluid within myself and accept that Allah has given me a less of an income. So now I adapt my life to it. I adapt to the situation rather than aspiring or trying to break down the block that is within me. It's a very fluid existence. So having that sort of fluid spirituality, being able to flow around difficulties, around problems, flowing with them, accepting them to be part and parcel of my existence, being part and parcel of what Allah has placed in my way. That way I don't get depressed about it. I'm happy, I'm fluid, I'm still moving. No matter what age I reach. Sometimes we reach a certain age and we're like, that's it, I've done my bit. No, I don't need to do any more. No, I've lived my life, I've done my bit, and that's it. No, it doesn't mean that. If Habib ibn Madahir had said, I've done my bit, at that time, or Muslim ibn Awsajah had said, I've done my bit, I lived with the Holy Prophet, I lived with Amirul Mu'mineen, now, why do I need to go? Then, they wouldn't be where they are today. They wouldn't hold the rank that they hold today. It's about being fluid. It's about adapting to a situation. The fourth thing that will maintain the happy soul, that will maintain happiness deep within the qalb of a person, is that removing the love of the dunya from the heart. Because love of dunya, hubb dunya ra'su kulli khati'ah. The love of the world is the root of all evil. It is the root that brings a person towards, and it has many different implications. It changes, it has many different forms. I'll give you the example. The hadith of the Holy Prophet is, the Holy Prophet said, جمود العين من قسوة القلوب وقسوة القلوب من كثرة الذنوب وكثرة الذنوب من نسيان الموت ونسيان الموت من طول الأمل وطول الأمل من حب الدنيا وحب الدنيا رأس كل خطيئة. He says that the dryness of your eyes, the fact that you can't cry when you do dua, when you go for ziyarat, when you do anything, says جمود العين من قسوة القلوب. It is because your heart has become dirty. It is because the heart has become clouded. وقسوة القلوب من كثرة الذنوب, and your dirty, clouded heart is because of your excessive sin. وكثرة الذنوب من نسيان الموت, and your excessive sin is because you've forgotten that you're going to die. ونسيان الموت من طول الأمل, and the fact that you've forgotten death is because you've set far-fetched hopes for yourself, big ambitions for yourself. I'm going to achieve this, I'm going to achieve this, I'm going to achieve this, but nowhere in there have you factored in that I may die. وَنِسْيَانُ الْمَوْتِ مِنْ طُولُ الْأَمَلِ وَطُولُ الْأَمَلِ مِنْ حُبِّ الدُّنْيَا, and your long far-fetched hopes are rooted in your love of the world. وَحُبُّ الدُّنْيَا رَأْسُ كُلِّ خَطِيئَةٍ, and the love of the world is the root, is the head of all evil, of all sin. Comes from that point. We want to rejuvenate the soul. We want to keep it alive. We want to stop it from being tired and stagnated. We have to work every day to remove that aspect of the love of the world from ourselves. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives our sins. Pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives the sins of our parents. Oh Allah, those of our parents that are alive, give them long lives. Those of our parents that have left this world, to give them the place next to Ali Muhammad in Jannah. Oh Allah, those who are ill, give them shifa'ah. Those who are in debt, clear their debts. Oh Allah, keep safe the Shia of Ali Muhammad around the world. Ya Allah, destroy the enemies of Tashayyu around the world. Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time, and allow us to be amongst his true muntadhireen, true awaiters, for the acceptance of these du'as and any other du'as of the brothers and sisters abroad. Please recite 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali
It was like,